Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Yes, it's me, Egbert. As the new owner of this station, I want to make sure we have the best talent on the air. That's why I've decided to ban all real estate agents and only have real talkers like Brad and John. Here they are, B and J.
You know, the reason I do that, John, is because of the fact that it doesn't matter that we sound like goofballs on the live show, but it makes a difference in the podcast. So, you know, the most important thing is the podcast, because we take the show and we chop it up when we make it into the podcast, put it up on YouTube and the whole bit like that. And we have to sound professional there, but we can sound like goofballs live on the air.
Oh, yeah, whatever. And I here's the thing. Here's my big idea for February. Now that we do re-racks, we have to have a female enhancement company sponsor at least every re-rack.
Listen to you. Okay.
And I know Simply Bella can't do it because they're not in the business of racks, so to speak.
Say that again, John.
I said that Simply Bella isn't in the business of racks.
But say what you say what you said before.
That we need to find a sponsor for every time you do a re-rack. We need to find a rack sponsor, someone who can.
Oh, wrong button. Hold on.
I knew it was a setup for something. I thought you were going to give me the Shelley Barr treatment.
Hold on,
and take that clip and then use it as a drop all the time.
Hold on, man.
That's one of your key tactics.
I'm trying to find the right button.
Sad trombone. Hey, if we're talking about racks, you're not going to hear a sad trombone over here. And we're talking about, when we say racks, Brad, this is a throwback to your days where in the radio business you would actually have racks of audio, correct?
We had racks of carts, yes. Everything looked like 8-tracks. They were like they were the same size as an 8-track cartridge, but each cartridge held one song or one commercial. That's the way it was.
You know what? There's somebody listening right now that was born in the early 2000s that's thinking of that Judd song, "Whoa, whoa, Grandpa, tell us about the good old days."
or here, hold on. Let me see if I got the right one here. Hold on a minute. That's not it. Hold on a minute.
There we go.
That's not it either. That's not it either. That's the one.
That's a dream sequence. John is set adrift on memory bliss there.
Okay. Something I want to talk about, which is interesting, was just in a commercial that played about AM radio in cars. Okay. There's something that I think very interesting that's going to impact car owners of the future. Now, the story is that, and this has been going on for a while, a lot of the car manufacturers are deleting AM radio in their cars. And this is interesting, primarily the electric cars, because there's noise generated by the system, by the motors and things like that. And it gets very hard to make the AM radio work properly in a car, an electric car. Okay, now what's interesting was Ford has already announced that, you know, they're trying to get a bill passed. That's what the ad's for the NAB. They're trying to get a bill passed to essentially mandate the car manufacturers to put AM in all their car radios. Now, the reason that this is changing, and I heard a very, very interesting story about this the other day, and I didn't bring this up the other day, was that the future of the car industry is going to be subscription models. And the idea being that if you buy a car and you let's say you go to the dealership and the dealership has the car that you want and it's $50,000 and it has heated seats, the only problem is they won't turn the heated seats on unless you buy a subscription to heated seats.
Oh, so it's like an a la carte thing. So it's there, but you can't enjoy it unless you pay the
because
subscription fee. It's
firmware inhibited. So in other words, the idea being is that the computer in the car is set up so, and see, this is the deal right now where already the Tesla cars can be updated over the internet. Essentially, they can be updated. I think they have a cellular connection or for sure a Wi-Fi connection. So in other words, if you talk, they talk about, and this is the interesting thing that's already going on in Ford, in the Ford cars that have already been manufactured with no AM radio. You can just go back to the dealership and they'll just plug into the OBD2 port, and they'll turn the AM radio on. It's there.
Wow.
It's just that they inhibited it so it doesn't work. So the idea being that if you want air conditioning, every month you'll have to pay for air conditioning. And if you want, heated seats, every month you have to pay for heated seats. It goes back to, and those of us in the broadcasting business who use Adobe Audition, it used to be, and there's a lot of software like this, it used to be that you could buy the disc and you could use it forever and ever and ever. Now Adobe has gone to totally a subscription model. If you want to use Adobe Audition, you don't want to do Adobe Premiere, which is the video editing software, you can't buy the software anymore. You have to just subscribe every month. And if you don't subscribe, if you stop your subscription, guess what? Your software doesn't work anymore.
You're out of luck.
Right.
Boy, isn't that but you know who loves that? Shareholders.
Well, but sure, because it's recurring revenue,
Yeah, you have to show the recurring revenue. And the whole freemium model. And when Adobe wants to roll something out that's new, they'll essentially force it on you and say, guess what? Your first 3 months are free. It's like any good drug dealer.
Well,
your first little bit is free.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and to a certain extent, it's sort of like what I talked about the other day about DVDs. I mean, to this day, I don't own a TV set. Well, quite honestly, I do own a TV set, but it's literally laying on the floor in one of the rooms, and I don't even have it hooked up.
Yeah.
Almost all my video watching is on my phone, and either that or on a computer screen, and to the point where I don't have Netflix. I don't subscribe to any of the services, Hulu, stuff like that. I do have Prime because of the fact that I buy stuff off of Amazon.
It comes with your Prime. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and Prime is a good deal, I think anybody would say.
Right, and it's thrown in as sort of like a bonus that if you keep Prime. And unfortunately, and I'll say this again, I don't want to sound like I'm being Mr. Two-Faced, because in some cases I am, but I'm a guy who promotes local business, and I know somebody's going to be out there saying, well, hold on a minute now. If you're promoting local business, why do you have a Prime account? Because you're buying stuff through internet, through the Amazon app. Well, the problem is that, and I'll give you a perfect example, stuff I bought in the last week, I used to be able to buy locally. Matter of fact, I bought a couple patch cables on Amazon that I'm using here in the studio. I used to be able to go down to Gateway Electronics. Gateway Electronics is gone. I used to be able to buy connectors and wire and things like that at Olive Electronics or Van Sickle. Olive and Van Sickle are gone. So there's no place for me to buy that stuff locally anymore. It does not exist.
You don't have a choice.
There's no choice. And to the point where, like, for example, like I talked about connectors, I used to be able to buy, we use microphone connectors here at the studio, XLRs, male and female connectors, stuff like that. I used to be able to go to like 3 or 4 places, even Guitar Center. And last time I was there, I tried to buy just some bare connectors. They don't have the bare. They're selling the whole cable, and I'm going like, I don't want a microphone cable. I need these for we have equipment here at the studio that's not microphone, but the XLR connectors are used for line level, and also they're used for digital. They're used for AES as well too. And I don't want a microphone cable. I just want the connectors so I can, solder it onto one of my other cables. You can't buy that anymore. It's not available. So matter of fact, today, I have an Amazon delivery of stuff that is, matter of fact, of all crazy things, a fuse block that I'm using for something in one of the studios that I cannot find locally anymore. And once again, there was a time 10, 15, 20 years ago when I could jump in my car and I could drive downtown to Van Sickle, which is actually down in the Soulard area, or back in the day it was Olive Electronics. They started out on Olive, then they moved out on Page. I could walk right in there and, walk up to the counter and, order the stuff and walk out with it. And I was doing business with a local company, paying local sales tax the whole bit. It's not there anymore. So
no more?
Yeah, it's sort of sad, and I get it. And by the way, let me dovetail into this right now. I'm going to dovetail into that. Today I started this thing. I have owned this radio station for 25 years. And when I bought the station, I paid literally 7 figures for the transmitters and the tower sites and the licenses and all that kind of stuff. I've gotten it down to about $100,000, okay? And I have a private investor because of the fact that we got kicked out of our bank. Why? Not because we weren't making our payments, because the bank got nervous because of the fact that, and exactly what's going on right now, if you think it was bad back then, we got kicked out of the bank, it's terrible now because of the fact that, once again, you have one of the big broadcasters in town. You have the company that owns CamoX, the big 1120, is in bankruptcy right now. They also own Y98 and KCK. The bankers know that. And they look at that and they go like, okay, let me look up your interesting. Oh, okay, the big company, iHeart, been bankrupt. Cumulus, been bankrupt. Odyssey, which owns 6 stations here in St. Louis, bankrupt. Let's look at the top 10 broadcasters in the United States. Beasley, their stock is being delisted. Urban One, their stock is being delisted. Salem used to be in this market. They pulled out. They sold their stations. Now their stock's being delisted. Guess what my chances are at the bank when you're in an industry like that?
Slim to none.
Yes, you're exactly right. So we got forced into our loan being bought out by a private investor. Okay? I have a balloon note. It's April 1st. Today's February 1st. Essentially, February this year is, we're in a leap year. I'm pretty sure we're in a leap year, aren't we? Aren't we sure?
We are.
Yeah, we're in a leap year. So I have 60 days from today. I'm trying to sell $100,000 worth of advertising between now and the end of March, okay? Because I want to pay off the stupid loan. I want to move on down the road. So I put up a special website, and I mentioned this the other day, and I just mentioned sort of in passing, but it's sort of a goofy website, and it's sort of, the idea being is trying to get people's attention. It's called paythisoff.com, just like it sounds, paythisoff.com. And when you go there, you'll see a great big delicious hamburger on the front page. What I've done is, as sort of a fun thing, I've turned a website that's being used for selling restaurant into my loan. So you can buy a burger package, you can buy a pizza package, you can buy a combo package, and I'm not asking for a handout. I'm just essentially saying, hey, do some business with us. What's frustrating to me, John, and I'll be right up front with you, is that very few of the organizations, the chambers of commerce used to buy advertising from us. Never happens anymore. We don't get that kind of, because why not? They're all doing social media. And
yeah, they're all paying for Facebook ads or Insta ads or
right.
whatever.
And what's frustrating to me is, by the nature of the beast, the what do the chambers of commerce tell you to do? Buy local. But yet, guess what they do when it comes to their media? They don't buy local. They send their money to California with Zuckerberg and stuff like that. So anyway,
and you should point out too that when you go to shop, sorry to interrupt, Brad, but when you go to shop and you look at these different packages, you will see burger and pizza pictures, but you click on them and you see the combo package. And this is not only what we're listening to over the air at this moment or on this podcast, but also Westplex 107.1.
Right, exactly. So it's both stations, and we have a social media component to that. Matter of fact, even to the point where, John, and don't take this the wrong way, but if you listen to our podcasts right now, the pre-roll is an ad for your book. I'm going to sell that as well too. So if I
you should. Yeah, absolutely.
If somebody wants to buy the pre-roll for the podcast, and quite honestly, every day we build more and more listenership to the podcasts, and I don't want to say viewership on YouTube, because I throw them up on YouTube as well too. They're technically, videos, but there's just a static.
People listen to the audio.
Right. Yeah. There's just a static picture on there. It's no video or anything like that on that. So anyway, paythisoff.com.
And do you want to mention too, for Westplex 107.1, for folks who don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about how that is focused more on the, such a great signal? And for example, when I'm driving through Chesterfield Valley, I hear, and you might hear ads about a geocached or a geofenced signal, but you get 107.1 in St. Louis County. You get it. You can talk about how strong it is in the Westplex area.
Well, I mean, our transmitter's right there at Bryan and Feisey. We're in the same tower that 97.1's on. I mean, we don't have the power that they do, and we have a directional antenna, whereas they have an omni antenna. Well, actually, they do have a little bit of a directional pattern, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I mean, once again, and see, the crazy thing about it is that we are local. And when you and I started doing the show, the whole idea behind what we're doing is, even though this station, the majority of the station has national talk shows on it, if I could find local people who would want to do a talk show on this, we'd be doing it. Now, perfect example, you look at what Tracy Ellis has tried to do, it ain't as easy as she thought it was, because she started off by hiring a bunch of, her deal was, and I had a meeting with her and her husband, Rick, and, two nice people. At least they used to be nice, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, the idea was Rick said to me, to my face, we don't trust radio people. And I'm going like, okay, so what are you trying to be? You're trying to be a radio person, but I guess you're saying we're not really radio people. We're real estate people that own a radio station. But the problem was when they started their station, they decided they weren't going to have any radio people. It was going to be all internet people. They learned their lesson. They learned their lesson about the podcast people because of the fact that, and I'm not saying anything bad about the podcasters, but there is a little bit difference when every single day, like for you and I, we have to start our show at 7 o'clock and we only do an hour. But
absolutely,
every day we have to be here to do this show. Whereas with the podcasts, if you want to do 3 or 4 of them in a day.
You could record them 10 at a time and go on vacation.
Right, exactly. So it's a little bit if it's a different discipline, and a lot of times the podcasters and even the YouTube people don't do well into our industry because of the fact that you mean I got to be there every day at 8 o'clock and I got to sit in the studio for 4 hours? Yes. Well, I don't know if I want to do that or not, because I want it, like you said, let's just knock out 10 It's sort of like the way they do game shows, TV game shows.
Yeah, just record them all in advance and then go on vacation for a couple weeks.
They record, like a lot of times, a lot of the shows, they'll record 3 and 4 of them in a day. So in other words, they'll work a couple days a week and then they'll be off for the rest of the week, and then they'll come back and they'll and then they'll knock a bunch of them out, and essentially they get to the point where maybe in a week they'll knock out 12 of them.
They're in the can,
right?
As they say, they're in the can,
and they'll knock out 12 of them, and then they take a week off or 2 weeks off or stuff like that. Anyway,
and Brad, folks can find this at paythisoff.com, and then you click on shop, you'll see a bunch of food. But look at the words instead of the pictures, and you can see what the packages are.
Is it stupid, John, or what?
No, it's great. I mean, you might, you could, in addition to the food, people might think that you haven't updated that part of the page yet, and maybe you could add a Westplex logo or an Egbert face because he's omnipresent in addition to the food. But we're talking nuts and bolts on the air here, but
I sort of like just the hamburgers and the pizzas and stuff like that.
I mean, when I went to it, I was about to point out that the page isn't updated yet because it still has food graphics, but that the details for the packages are coming soon.
Well, but the idea is that once again, there's 3 impressions you can make in life: good, bad, and none. And what I'm trying to make is I'm trying to make a good impression. And I think that if you look at some sites, it's to the point where you make no impression because it's just another site.
It's so generic. Yeah, I agree completely. And by the way, it shows on here that folks can pay on PayPal.
That's right.
Well.
That's right.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?